Hey there, and welcome back to the Stay at Home Detectives podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Sam.
And today we embark on a journey to Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois, where the eerie legend of Resurrection Mary unfolds. Brace yourselves for a tale of ghostly encounters, mysterious apparitions, and the haunting specter that lingers in the shadows. Get ready to explore the otherworldly mysteries that surround this infamous resting place.
Buckle up, we're taking you on a ride.
Stay at Home Detective style.
We're about to take you on a roller coaster of a long-lived legend and ghost story about the infamous Resurrection Mary, the hitchhiking ghost who haunts the roadsides of Archer Avenue here in Justice, Illinois. Imagine driving home late at night to see a beautiful woman wearing a white ball gown with accessories and hairstyle to match. You think she is stranded and offer to give her a ride, but once you reach the cemetery, she vanishes into thin air. That would be Resurrection Mary. She would also manifest as a lonely woman at the O. Henry Ballroom, and after a long night of dancing, she usually asks a male for a ride home, but again, when they pass the cemetery, the young woman disappears. Depending on who was telling the story, one of the most shared narratives put her death ultimately in the late 1920s to early 1930s, when she was either a victim of a fatal car crash on the way home from a night of dancing, or the unfortunate victim of a hit and run while she was walking home in the rain after getting into an argument with her boyfriend, and decided to walk home from the O. Henry Ballroom, which was renamed the Willowbrook Ballroom but was sadly destroyed by a fire in 2016.
So where does the name Resurrection Mary come from? Many have speculated that this mystery woman is buried at the cemetery and was a young, beautiful Polish woman by the name of Mary Begrawi, who was killed in a car accident in 1934, allegedly on her way home from the O. Henry Ballroom. But this was yielded because Mary actually got killed in a car accident on Wacker Drive in Chicago. Research also came up that Mary did not have the same hair color or style as Resurrection Mary. So this was just speculation. Today, though, many agree that a woman named Anna Majira Norkis is actually Resurrection Mary. Her story seems fairly consistent with the legend. Anna was a beautiful young blonde-haired teenager who loved to dance. She begged her father to take her dancing for her 13th birthday. On the evening of July 20th, 1927, father and daughter set out from their Chicago home for the famous O. Henry Ballroom, accompanied by a friend, William Wisner, and Wisner's date. On their drive home at approximately 1:30 a.m., the travelers passed Resurrection Cemetery via Archer Avenue, turning east on 71st Street, and then north on Harlem to 67th Street. If you're a Chicago native like we are, you know exactly where that's at.
Yep.
There, the car veered off-road and dropped into an unseen 25-foot deep railroad cut. Anna was killed instantly. It is said that Anna is buried at St. Casimir Cemetery in Chicago. Sometime in the late 1930s, a man named Jerry Paulus was the first known person to have claimed to encounter Resurrection Mary. Jerry was out at the O. Henry Ballroom when he was smitten over a young blonde woman. They spent the night dancing away. They even shared a kiss, but something was off, according to Jerry. He said her hands were cold as ice, but she had a warm heart. Once closing time rolled around, he offered to give her a ride home. She said she lived on the south side, but asked Jerry to take her down Archer Avenue, which was the opposite way of where they were supposed to be headed. A confused Jerry took her down Archer Avenue, and when they approached Resurrection Cemetery, she motioned for Jerry to stop. And when he stopped the car, she got out and vanished before his eyes. Jerry's encounter was the one that begun the legend. Several people claim to have run-ins with Resurrection Mary in the 1970s and 1980s.
In 1973, Resurrection Mary was said to have shown up at Harlow's nightclub, which for those of you, I have never heard of this nightclub, but it's on Cicero Avenue in Chicago's southwest side. So Resurrection Cemetery is not that far from the south side of Chicago because Justice is kind of on that border, just to give everybody an idea of where I'm talking about. That same year, a cab driver came into Chet's Melody Lounge across the street from Resurrection Cemetery to inquire about a young lady who had left without paying her fare. There were said to also be sightings in 1976, 1978, 1980, and 1989, which involves cars striking or nearly striking Mary outside of Resurrection Cemetery. Mary disappears, however, by the time the motorist exits the car, she vanishes into thin air. She also reportedly burned her handprints into the wrought iron fence around the cemetery in August 1976, although officials at the cemetery have stated that a truck had damaged the fence and that there is no evidence of a ghost. All of the urban legends, all of the ghost hunters, the pictures, everybody believes that it looks like handprints.
In 1979, a cab driver named Ralph claimed to pick up a hitchhiker. He said she was no older than 21. As the two drove up Archer Avenue, she suddenly jumped up and said, "Here, here." Ralph questioned if she was sure this is where she wanted to go, but before she got out of the cab, she disappeared without a trace. Throughout the years, most of the stories follow a typical version of a vanishing hitchhiker, a young woman at the local bars, and the many stories of her being at the O. Henry Ballroom, or being given a ride only to disappear upon reaching her destination. Due to the number of sightings and the credibility of those who claim to have seen her, Resurrection Mary is said to be one of Chicago's most famous ghosts. What do you think? Have you heard the story?
For those of you who remember listening to The Mysteries of Bachelor Grove...
Bachelor Grove.
Sorry, guys.
We have a lot of bloopers with this episode, so bear with us.
We have a case of the giggles.
We usually have a case of the giggles, but today it's like on another level because we're lacking. We're lacking sleep. We're lacking sleep.
Archer Avenue.
We're lacking sleep.
Oh, we definitely are lacking sleep. I'm exhausted. If you go back to the beginning of our podcast when we started it, I believe it was our second episode, right?
We went on a bit of a hiatus.
We're sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, in 2023, so last year, we started the podcast in December officially.
And we did
of 2022.
Madalena
was our first episode. The Mysteries of Bachelor's Grove was the second. And then we did Maura Murray. And then we did a case update for Madalena.
And then Daisy Meheath, right?
No. Oh. Then it was Alyssa Turney. But the Madalena Kojikari case update where we provided just a couple of details. It was very short. But that was the last episode we had posted in February of 2023. And then we went on a bit of a hiatus. For those of you that don't know, we did have another podcast that we were doing at the time. We're both moms. I'm a military spouse. My husband's gone a lot. He gets activated a lot. So it was a crazy, crazy year, 2022 and 2023. Mm-hmm. And so we really didn't have a choice but to put the podcast on hold. And then we came back with a bang in November of 2023. And here we are. And we're doing weekly episodes and stuff now. But
we also, during that time, had lost our beloved Aunt Kim.
Yes.
And if you go back and you listen to the Mysteries of Bachelor's Grove, we talk about how our families, they loved doing ghost tours. They used to always do Richard Crowe ghost tours. For those of you that don't know, Richard Crowe was huge into doing ghost tours along Chicago, the South Side. I mean, they'd go to Bachelor's Grove, Resurrection Cemetery, Hull House. They even would go by the Willowbrook Ballroom, which was the O. Henry Ballroom that we were talking about. Our Aunt Kim, she loved everything paranormal, everything ghosts.
So we have so many stories we can share about our Aunt Kim. So just a little bit of context. If you're not familiar with Sam and I's friendship dynamic, we do share a little bit about it on our first episode of our new series, Caffeine Chronicles. We share a little bit about it. If you're not familiar with Sam and I, you haven't been following our journey for the past couple years. But Sam and I have been best friends for over 30 years, since we were about 6 years old. So I grew up with her family. She grew up with mine. And we were both super close to her Aunt Kim. So that is my Aunt Kim as well. I've known her since I was 6. And so throughout the years, especially when we were teenagers, we have so many fun, crazy endeavors that we went on with Aunt Kim.
It was always me, you, and our other bestie, Alyssa. We would always be with Aunt Kim. And she'd always be like, "Do you guys want to go to the cemetery?" And we're like, "Well, I mean, yeah."
And it was always at night.
Yeah.
creepy situations and scenarios, going exploring.
I remember, and I talked about this in the Bachelor's Grove episode, but my family, we went on a family outing to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, and who does this? And I was young. Did my dad go with? I swear my dad was there.
He probably was. I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, who takes their family on a trip to a cemetery?
And then take a bunch of pictures.
Anyway,
and then took a bunch of pictures.
There are, I need to find those pictures. I know my mom has them somewhere.
Yeah, I remember going through them.
And there was the apparitions from Bachelor's Grove.
There's apparitions, there's orbs, there's all the things that you would expect to see by taking pictures in a haunted cemetery.
For those of you that also don't know what a VHS tape is, which I really hope everybody does, please
all
don't let me down.
Out there.
My mom still has like the Richard Crowe ghost hunting. Like, I'm gonna bust these out. We're doing this.
Yeah, we need to do it.
We went off on a tangent. Sorry, guys. My mom was always a big believer in Resurrection Mary, and we'd always go past like the Willowbrook Ballroom. And I know that I'm pretty sure my mom and Joe had actually went dancing there before, which is the cutest, most hilarious thing ever. Sorry, I just threw Joe's name out there. That's my stepdad for those of you that need to know. And I remember before they replaced the wrought iron fence, I remember going and seeing like what was these handprints. I believe that it was her. I've always believed in stuff like this. I've always believed in, especially Resurrection Mary, just because how many sightings there's always been. I wonder whatever happened to her.
Whatever happened to her, did you say?
Yeah, you haven't heard anything.
Is she
anymore.
still
Did
haunting?
It just stop?
Did you just stop haunting Resurrection Cemetery?
I don't know.
What is happening? Where are you? Where are you, Mary?
ever since, you know, I was really sad for her too. Literally, I was sad for her.
Yeah, it's
when
a
the
sad
Willowbrook
story.
Ballroom too, like when it got destroyed by the fire in 2016, and I remember my mom was really upset by it too because she really loved that place. The whole story is just sad, but it's just so weird too. Like hearing all of the encounters of her, and they'd always say that like she had like these cold hands and this warm heart, and the stories that like even we've heard growing up. I mean, there's a lot of urban legends that are around the Chicagoland area. And for those of you who are listening, if there's any that you'd like to hear us cover at any point in time, I know Monk's Castle, which is St. James Cemetery, which is not that far from Resurrection Cemetery, is another one. But Resurrection Mary is literally one of the top ones. I just remember learning about growing up. Again, it's kind of weird that our families had us learn about all of this growing up.
Yeah, and it's the same for me. I was usually along for some of those rides and occasions. And then my family was the same way. I grew up with my grandmother, who was really big on horror movies. Like, I think I watched my first one at 2 and got hooked on horror movies growing up. And then we were always going to all of the different hauntings. I went on a few ghost tours with my grandma, the Richard Crowe ghost tours. It was just me and my grandma. I was probably like 12, 13 years old. I remember those days. And the same thing, my grandma and I, it was during the day, went on a family outing to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. We were just taking pictures.
We've went during the day as well.
I've gone at night as well. I didn't actually go in. You got to go back and listen to our Bachelor's Grove Cemetery episode, because I share a little bit about my experience there, and with a police officer like not allowing us to go in because there's cult activity, very, very high cult activity that goes on in there as well. So add that to all of the hauntings and the craziness that goes on.
Now, to give you guys a small little rundown, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is not an active cemetery anymore. Like, God bless the people that are buried there. But Resurrection Cemetery is still a very huge cemetery that has a lot of traffic. Like, there's a lot of traffic that go through that cemetery. So that's still an active, busy cemetery versus Bachelor's Grove. You know what, Jen? If there's anybody local to us, we should all get together and do a ghost tour.
Yeah, we're totally up for it. So if any of our listeners or fellow podcasters are in the Chicagoland area, hit us up, email us. We'd love to chat with you, or maybe do a collab, possibly go out and visit some of these sites, do an episode on it.
I think that would be a lot of fun. And then we could take all of you on an adventure like our families did when we were little kids.
It'd be like the Blair Witch Project with our video camera. We should get an old school. Actually, I have an old school 4K one. Too. We should try it. I don't know how well it would turn out.
We can also like have a movie night, and if anybody has a VHS player that they want to bring, we can
My
totally
grandma
watch it.
actually might have one still. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure she
okay.
does. All of these urban legends, there's so many of them, like Sam said, especially in the Chicagoland area. But Chicago is known for so many different urban legends. There's so many of them to look into and to do deep dives into. So we're excited to continue doing this little like mystery segment that we've been doing here on Stay at Home Detectives and talking about the paranormal and hauntings. We'll get a little bit into that too on Caffeine Chronicles. We're going to talk about some hauntings on there too. We'll be talking about cryptids. We're looking forward to that. We'll have some guests on there, very special guests that you guys will definitely want to tune into. And that one's a video podcast. So make sure if you're on YouTube and you like to watch video podcasts as opposed to just listening, you can go tune in for that series because that one's video. So that one's fun. And it's a bonus series on here. We're very well aware that most of the content we cover is true crime related, but we wanted to mix it up. We wanted to still be able to do something a little bit fun and be able to be our goofy selves because you don't get to see us behind the scenes. We're pretty goofy people. we can't get through a lot of things without laughing and making jokes. So we wanted to be able to display that side of us because that's a huge part of who we are.
It's a really fun series.
It's super fun.
And I can't wait to have some guests and kind of go over other things.
Yeah, and if you want to get deeper into the true crime realm, so we try to do ethical true crime when we are covering cases, and it gets deep. And with Stay at Home Detectives, we try to keep it kind of balanced between Caffeine Chronicles and doing some case coverage. We do high-level case coverage, but if you really want to dive deeper into cold cases, unsolved cases, go follow The Unseen Truth. That's our new investigative podcast series that launches in March. We dive really deep into that, and that's a very, very in-depth, very serious podcast. We'll be working with families. We'll be interviewing different people. So it's really going to be an awesome podcast that we're looking forward to starting. So you have a little bit of a variety, but we're excited to get this going. We have a lot to cover here. So, but make sure you continue to tune in and do us a favor. If you really like listening to our podcast episodes, if you don't mind leaving us a 4 or 5 star review, we would love to get your review. We love to hear from you all and what you want to listen to. So, but that would really help us out, helps us get seen more into the podcast world. And so we can continue to do what we love and continue to chat with you all. So, but anyways, we're going to wrap it up here today. We hope you all have an awesome week and we'll chat with you next time. Bye guys.